Hello, it's Lainey Russell here from Achievement for All, and I'm joined today by Head of Early Years, Maureen Hunt. And Maureen has written a really interesting blog on transitions, and we're going to look a little bit today and talk through some of her observations on this. So Maureen, thanks for joining me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Lainey.
Good, and I'm really interested in the blog that you wrote about transitions, because you talked about change being a challenging time, and you talked a bit about change. Can you just talk us through a little bit about that first before we go into the detail of early years?
Yeah, I mean, change is challenging for everybody. It throws up all sorts of issues for people. It can make you feel unconfident. If you go into a new job, you can start to think, can I do this? Is this the right move for me? Is this better than what I had before? Even moving house, anything like that can throw up, feelings of uncertainty. When you move into a new place, a new job, a new workplace, getting to know new people, the new systems, even a new culture, ways of working, it all throws up challenges. So we have to really realise that any change for anyone can be a challenging time, even if that change is something you've looked forward to and wanted to happen for a long time. It still can throw up challenges for people.
Yeah, and I know you talked a lot in your blog about even if you've planned for change, so even when it's expected, and as you said, even when you're looking forward to it, it can be quite a difficult time because you're going through something that is different to usual and having to get used to a new normal or a new way of being. And you also talked a bit about that whole thing about productivity dipping. So do you want to talk us through a little bit about that?
Yeah, when you've got to adjust to new people, to new routines, way of working, learning new systems, things that you were confident in doing before, might take you a lot longer. And that's okay, because that's what induction periods are around when you change jobs, aren't they? Yeah. They're around getting to know things and getting to know people. But when you have change sprung upon you quickly, without periods of time to adjust and come to terms with that change, it can slow you up considerably. So we need to be very mindful of how change affects people, really.
Yes, and some of the other videos we've been doing, we have talked about the fact of getting used to like working from home and all those sorts of things. But actually, we've chosen to work that way, and we've had a period of adjustment through choice. Actually, what's happened to a lot of people now is that, as you've just said, you've used the exact right phrase, I think they've been thrown into it really unexpectedly. So they're bound to be going through some of those feelings and being a bit anxious and a bit panicky, maybe even at the beginning. Now, you're looking at this in terms of the little people in our lives, and so early years, young people and children. And in terms of early years and children's reaction to this, how do you think it's going to impact on them, and what are they feeling, do you think, now?
Well, young children need to feel secure to cope with change, and they completely rely on the adults around them to help them feel that way. They're very dependent on them. So whatever is happening for them now is their normal. So when they go back to school or nursery or preschool, they may well have forgotten all about what happens in the setting, the routines, the people there, the children there. I think a very, very gentle and patient start back for them is going to be necessary. If they are not secure in their relationships, they will not be secure with the changes, and people need to be very, very mindful of that. It may throw up things around behaviour. Children are experiencing fear, anxiety and uncertainty, and not forgetting the ones that may have experienced trauma, or loss during this time.
Yes.
This will throw up emotions for them, and they cannot always express those emotions. They don't always have the language to do so, and so they may start to have tantrums, hurt other children, etc. So what I would say to people is be very patient, be very, very calm about how you reintroduce children to the expectations in the setting. Don't view behaviour as a behaviour problem. Look at the child, spend time looking at what do they need, what do you think this behaviour is telling you about what this child needs. If you meet the child's needs and spend time supporting them to develop their strategies through meeting their needs, things will be calmer. But I suppose the key message here is take your time, really focus on children's needs.
Yeah, it's really interesting listening to you say that, and often I find correlations between what you're talking about in early years, and of course I work with the teenagers up the other end of the scale, but that whole thing about behaviour is communication, you know, I talk about that a lot with people that are working with teenagers, and if we can just see behaviour as a way of communicating something, then we start to look for different things in that behaviour, don't we? But I do think what you've just said there, and to highlight a couple of your points, that we can't just expect them to be the children that we saw before this happened, because you're absolutely right. Things will have gone on in their little lives that we may not have a concept of. And so you're seeing maybe a different child come back to you, really, aren't you?
Absolutely. And we have to be very, very mindful of that. People are going to be different, and actually staff are going to be different as well, because we don't know what has gone on in staff's lives while they've been away, the children, and what triggers things will, you know, what will trigger things for them as well. I think it's going to need a lot of patience and a lot of understanding and a lot of love, really. Professional love, I think, is going to be really important.
Yes, and you're right, and the adults will be in a different place as well. It's almost like they're starting from scratch with brand new children meeting brand new adults in many ways, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes.
And the other thing in your blog that struck me as well is we're talking about them going back to something, but of course some of the children might be starting reception or starting year one for the first time. So that's completely different again, isn't it? Because where we might have, yes, all right, we've got a transition in place, but these children might have left a kind of friendly, secure environment, and now they're not going back to it at all. They're going into something new. How's that going to work?
Well, this is one of the real problems around transition policies, is that they focus very much on events, and they focus on meet and greet events and meet with teacher events and come to your school events. And suddenly we've had the rug pulled from under our feet with that, because none of that is going to happen probably this term at all. So we're left with a void where transition hasn't happened. And if we're not very careful, these children are going to have, you know, massive change thrust upon them, like we were talking about. I mean, transition is about flow. If you think about a river, it's about flow. There shouldn't be any weirs or waterfalls in that river. You know, it's about gentle bridges. It's not about jumping over hurdles. And suddenly, all of our, you know, systems for that may have been taken away. So what we have got now is time to think and time to plan. And what I would suggest strongly is that settings do all they can to find out about the children that are coming to them, or you know, they get in touch with the feeder preschools, etc., and they talk about the children, and then they do what they can to talk with the parents as well. Now, this may well be possible via video links, calls, etc. Just talk to parents, ask questions. Tell me about your child is a very, very powerful question to ask parents. Again, lots of transition policies focus on schools telling parents stuff. But actually, we need to turn it on its head, and we need to get parents involved and get them to tell us about their children, because that's the only way we will be able to meet those children's needs when they end up on your doorstep. Things like sending videos out, you know, the school, setting the classroom, even having little video clips of staff talking, saying we're really looking forward to you coming, online blogs, letters, perhaps setting older children to write letters as part of their homeschooling for the younger children, saying we're really looking forward to seeing you. Anything that you can do to bridge the gap between what they're leaving and what they're coming into will help. But the one thing that I would really stress here is communication between the settings where the children come from, where they're going, and the parents. now we're writing Achievement for All, a whole module around this with an audit and lots of best practice blogs and videos and ideas really that people will be able to log in and access. So hopefully that will help.
Excellent. So in terms of that help and support then, so we'll have a link to this information that you've just mentioned, Maureen. Is there anything else that people can link to, or anything else that's there available for them?
I think perhaps looking at emotion coaching programs, well-being programs, all of those sorts of things. This is the time where I think we've got to go back to basic and build relationships and put relationships at the heart of what we do. Not so much, you know, systems and information, but actual relationships. So emotion coaching programs will help. It'll help sort, you know, practitioners to support children that are showing signs of behaviours that they wish to support them with, and well-being, you know, well-being programs. Okay,
well, we will put links to all of those things at the end of this video, and we will be doing another session, another chat specifically for leaders and managers in early years settings. But if you have found value and of interest in this video of Maureen and her blog, please do click on the link that you're going to see here to pop £1 in the pot towards the charity, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.